Ed Rosenberg again, and this afternoon I'm speaking to Kevin Weeks from Payability. Kevin, how are you?
I'm doing all right, Ed. How's it going?
Okay, I'm doing great, and thank you so much for coming on. Now, Payability's been making a lot of noise lately, and when it started, it was just, hey, the money comes in and we'll give it to you before. What has Payability been up to now?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you noticing for one. So yeah, as you mentioned, our sort of historical business maybe 2-3 years ago was really just Amazon payments daily, next day for Amazon sellers. So if you sold on Amazon, you could get paid every single day with us. That's still a big chunk of our business, but over the last probably year and a half, we've been paying attention to customers and hearing what they really need and expanding basically in two different ways. One is more marketplaces, right? We know Amazon is giant. Obviously, you make a living with Amazon related things, but people sell in other places, right? Walmart, Jet, Shopify, et cetera. So over the last couple months, we've expanded to those marketplaces. So Walmart, Jet, Shopify, Newegg, Top Hatter, and Etsy. The list keeps expanding. And with that, there's another product as well that I think is probably more relevant to a lot more sellers, which is instead of just daily payments, which is great. I mean, everyone loves consistent cash flow, but instead of just daily payments, we have a new product called Instant Advance. And what that means is we give you a lump sum of cash that you pay us back over time. So maybe it feels like a loan to the merchant, and it's a really good way for people to get ahead of big periods of demand and invest in their business and invest ahead of time, not just sort of getting the daily payments. So we like to think that we're building products that are relevant to all sellers. So hopefully this captures more of the market and people are happy with it. So
Right, and that makes sense. But with Amazon, you had that security. You knew the money's coming in. I mean, I'm curious, like, how do you protect yourself?
Protect ourselves in what way? So how, like, whether or not Amazon's going to pay us, or
No, Amazon, just like the sun comes up, Amazon's going to pay.
Yep. Well, you know better than anyone that there are suspensions and there are things. So there's, some days the sun comes up 2 weeks later than you expect. But yes, it's a fair point.
Right, but I'm saying with Walmart or eBay, how if you're giving a cash advance, even on Amazon, how does that work?
Yeah, right. It's a good question. So it's a fundamentally different product, right? We are advancing capital to someone and betting that they will continue growing and continue operating their business as it looks today. We look back at their historical performance. We look back at unique things that traditional lenders don't. I personally spent 6.5 years at Bank of America, so I understand how banks think about things. And what we do is we look at the unique data that a seller has and use that to predict their future, their future success. So fairly obvious things: ratings, types of SKUs, types of categories, seasonality, things like that are obvious. There's some less obvious things as well. Are you FBA? Are you seller fulfilled? How long have you been selling on Amazon or Jet, et cetera? So we have this, gigantic machine learning algorithm that helps us project how comfortable we are with a customer and how comfortable we are that they will stay with us over time. So it's at the end of the day, it's a risky business, but we're pretty comfortable with the risk we're taking.
Right, that makes sense. Do you have a relationship with Amazon?
We do. We know Amazon in a couple different ways. One, you've probably seen our ads in Seller Central. Our head of sales, Brent, I think his face is on one of our ads. So we like to call that the Brent face ad. So we have a good marketing partnership with Amazon, for one. We're friendly with the folks on the Amazon lending team and a couple other groups as well. So they have like a startup accelerator team that we're friendly with as well. So yeah, it's a good relationship.
But Amazon's got to still be 90% of your business.
Yeah, today it is. So as you probably know, we've been diversifying into other marketplaces just for 6 months or so to date. So yeah, we have a couple dozen customers on other marketplaces, but thousands of customers on Amazon. So yeah, it's twofold. One, Amazon's the biggest, so you would expect that most of our business would be with Amazon. But two, we've been with Amazon the longest. So, I generally run our new marketplace push. So that's what I've been spending most of my time on. And yeah, we when we sign marketing partnerships or business development deals with new marketplaces, it's really exciting when we get one customer or two or five or 15, and then we can start learning. And it's what's been really interesting is seeing existing customers add new marketplaces, right? So someone who's been with us on Amazon for a year, now we service Walmart sellers and say, oh my God, I've been selling on Walmart for a year too. I'm going to start getting daily payments there and on Jet and on Newegg, and really sort of diversifying their business with us as well. So
do you think in 10 years, I'm just curious to get your perspective, Amazon will have a smaller market share than it has now, or bigger?
It's a really good question. My guess is it's binary. Either there is some regulation that reduces it, or regulators let it happen and let it continue to have its sort of dominant role, and it'll continue to grow. What's interesting about the regulation piece, and like I said, I worked at a bank heavily regulated during the financial crisis, so I'm familiar with that, is that Amazon, in the short term, in any short-term window, Amazon and their dominance is good for consumers. It generally results in lower rates, faster shipping, higher quality products on average, probably. So it's something that in the United States, as far as I can tell, the government has never really regulated against. They typically regulate against market power that allows you to raise rates, or allows you to make lower quality products, or allows you to rip off the customer. The customer is happy. I buy so much stuff on Amazon. I mean, it's unbelievable, right? So it'll be interesting to see if regulators regulate against something that actually helps the end consumer. So jury's out. I don't know. But
I'll tell you the difference. So like, let's say Bank of America. So let's say, or Con Edison. So
yeah,
that has to be regulated because I can't open up my own electric
right.
grids. It'll take me 20 years. But Amazon, anybody can compete in 5 minutes, open up a Shopify account, and if you can do it better, then
right, good luck.
Yeah, I mean, what amazes me is how one company can just dominate for so long. It's just amazing.
I mean, it really is. We required reading for our new employees, which we've had a lot of in the last year, is The Everything Store by Brad Stone. Just if you get the principles in that book, you're going to be a better Payability employee. So if I imagine a lot of your audience has read that book, but they should read it if they haven't.
No, but I've read some of those Amazon like philosophies and like their principles, and it works.
Yeah, right. It's an amazing business, and we are beneficiaries of their open third party ecosystem, and honestly, there's so much tailwind there. Like, there are new merchants every day. There are new merchants every minute signing up and trying it out, because it's so, like you said, it's so easy to check it out. It's easy to start a Shopify store, I guess, but it's also relatively easy to list an item on Amazon and see if you can sell it. So.
Right. How would you say business changed in the last 4 years in e-commerce, since Payability started till now?
Yeah, it's one thing that we talk about a lot here is that in e-commerce, the competition takes place on the demand side generally nowadays. It used to be, online or offline, you could have a real competitive advantage as a business owner by just having really good supply, because you could kind of figure out how to find buyers, excuse me. What Amazon has done is sucked up all of the demand. So most product searches start on Amazon. So anyone in my office, anyone listening to this, when they search for something, they either Google it or Amazon it, right? And a lot of times Google takes them to Amazon, which means Amazon controls demand. And so the sellers are really left competing against themselves with a dominant platform. So it's something that is a new phenomenon in retail and e-commerce. And I think what we see with sellers is that it's increasingly competitive on that side of the business, right? Because Amazon basically has a monopoly on the demand side. So as a result, sellers have to be competing against one another like crazy. They're not competing necessarily against like other websites. They're competing against each other on Amazon because that's where all the buyers are. So what we hear is, the best sellers are the ones who figure out competitive advantage within that construct. So who has the best repricing algorithm? Who has the best proprietary source of a given product so that they can always charge a cheaper rate than the guy who's selling it and pays more for it? Who has money faster? Who can replenish inventory faster? So I don't think those trends are going anywhere. But it's fascinating to watch because I don't think those market dynamics existed 4, 5, 6 years ago.
There's also creativity, which I think is the biggest thing now. Like anything I think of is made.
Yeah.
Like, well, it's unbelievable. I mean, I needed a fly squad, and then I said, like, why do they make it? Why don't they put like a light on? The electric fly squatters.
Yep. Yeah, that like shock the.
Yeah. I always feel bad doing it, but
it's a quick, painless death.
Yeah, I could see people like not liking it, but whatever. So then I said, like, why don't you have a light? This way you can close the light, just go like that, and the fly will be attracted to it. They have that. Then I said, why do you need batteries for? Why don't you just plug? They have that. So anything you need is made already. It's incredible, and I think that's great for the consumer.
Yeah, no, and this is the fundamental sort of tension here is like all this stuff is good for the consumer. Anything you could possibly want is there. I mean, I should say we're both based in New York. Etsy's also based in New York. There's some really interesting stuff on Etsy. There's some really, I think I'm kind of creative. I'm not as creative as the top quartile creative, even the top, 50% of creative people on Etsy. So I don't think that creativity has maxed out, right? There will always be new cool stuff and it'll be start on Etsy and then make its way to Amazon once it becomes commoditized. So
yeah, Etsy came up with a nice, they're like one of the few success because they came up with a nice little niche. Amazon is more of like, you need it, you get it. That's it. Etsy is more like almost the opposite. So they came up with a nice,
right.
They came up with a nice one, but it'll be endless. Creativity will be endless until for the next 10,000 years. There'll never be a time where people will stop creating. There'll always be adjustments,
Well, and it seems like that's where. So we were just at a conference in Minnesota last week, and one of the panelists was discussing how to think of creative things to sell on Amazon. And what's interesting is that if you can think of it, you can get it manufactured now, right? So I think some of the sort of more creative and more sort of like DIY sellers, they automate everything in their business except thinking of new stuff, right? So they have assistants writing reviews. They have banking partners automating things. Everything's automated except the one thing that they're better at than everyone else, which is thinking of new products. So it's kind of business 101. You should probably do that. If you're good at something, that should be the thing that you spend most of your time on. But we're seeing our customers gravitate towards that as well. Like they used to kind of do everything. They used to print shipping labels and put them on boxes and go to the mailbox and like, no, not anymore. Your job is to source. Your job is to think of stuff. You're like, and not, pack boxes or whatever.
Right. So, but do you feel there's an unusual high concentration of sellers in New York, New Jersey?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was at your conference. It's insane. It's like one of the it's a couple things. I mean, the port here obviously is super important, right? There's a ton of sort of logistical stuff in New York and New Jersey. And it's interesting how like industries kind of pop up together because you would think the internet would allow this to be evenly dispersed around every town in the entire universe, but it's just not how it works because moving heavy stuff from China takes a giant boat, and on that boat are giant boxes, and in those boxes there's even smaller but still giant boxes. So there is still like economies of being clustered when you're sourcing stuff from overseas. And so But yeah, I mean, I think we have customers in all 50 states, and I'm fairly certain our top 4 states are California, New York, New Jersey, and I want to say like Florida, maybe, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, Florida is huge.
Yeah.
So. Okay, so where do sellers spend their time and money? Like when you give them money, what do they do with it?
Yeah, the biggest thing is just buying more inventory, right? I mean, that's the, like we were just talking about, that's the lifeblood of these businesses, is sourcing good products. And when you've figured out how to generate demand for it, not running out of it, right? That is like it sounds obvious, but it's running, having a stock out can be deadly with the A9 algorithm. And so for all sorts of different reasons, people use our money to buy inventory. If you're not using the money to buy inventory, you should be. There are, I guess what we say is if you're trying to grow, if you're putting your foot on the gas, the best thing you can do is list more stuff on Amazon. So that's generally it. Other general business expenses probably too, but the vast majority of this money gets spent on inventory.
Right. So how do you balance the growth between profitability and growing?
Yeah, that's kind of a personal preference, I guess, and that's a preference for any business, not just for e-commerce sellers, not just for Amazon sellers. In fact, one of the guys I spoke to at this conference I was just mentioning, there's all these panels that are like how I went from $10 to $10 million with these 7 easy steps or something like that. He was saying, I'd love to do a panel about like how to make 50 grand a year and fish 5 days a week, because that's what I'm doing with my Amazon business. So he's obviously made that choice to go that way. It just depends. I mean, look, if you have a product that you believe is unique to you and you can keep selling it at a predictable rate, then maybe the move is to maximize your possible margins. If you have a high growth product that's very competitive, we would recommend juicing, getting as much possible juice out of that as you can in dollar terms before it becomes too competitive and you have to move on to the next thing. This competition thing it can't be overstated. I mean, there's this paradox of if you find something successful on Amazon, it's not a secret. People will find it on Jungle Scout or whatever, and before you know it, there will be people doing the same thing. With every possible iteration, better price, different colors, like all that stuff, and then you lose your competitive advantage. So as a result, this is a long-winded answer. We believe that the way to be successful on Amazon is to push for the most possible dollars in your pocket at the end of the year, even if that means sacrificing some margin. So growth can generally outstrip margin, and we've seen this with our sellers who do it right, who constantly reinvest in their business. So,
well, one thing what's changed, I think, like since I started selling online, is that there used to be like the inventory always depreciates, right? But
yeah.
I think in 2018 it depreciates a lot faster.
Right. Well, and that's probably because of this competition. It's not that the stuff like this microphone isn't like inherently, lower quality than the microphone. It's higher quality than the microphones 10 years ago. But since there are so many people selling this microphone, you as the owner of that inventory, your market price gradually goes down because I'm competing and I sell this and you sell this, and I'm going on vacation next week, so I'm just going to slash my prices to get rid of all this stuff. That means you're screwed. The market has now come out from below you, and now you have to deal with an environment where this thing that you paid for is cheaper. That's a tough situation, right?
Right, and someone's going to come out with better packaging in 3 days, and somebody's going to come out with Bluetooth and a waterproof case, and
right.
You're stuck
with a fly swatter on it, and like.
right. I got to just tell you, going back to what we said before about the New York, New Jersey thing. Like I was once on eBay's, like they have the government relations team. So I used to be on it. Like there were like 2 people from every state. Mm-hmm. So they were talking about doing the sales tax at the time, at the federal level, and part of the rules were that up to $1 million you didn't have to pay because you were still a small business. So somebody from Alaska told me that like in his state there's only like 12 businesses doing $1 million or more out of state.
Interesting.
I told them on my block there's around 50.
Yeah, right. No, that's exactly right. It's like well, and as I said, I was at your conference. It was like standing room only the whole time. So
yeah, well, I mean, somebody said by our conference that, I don't want to overstate it, that one zip code accounts for like 6% of Amazon sales, which is incredible.
Yep. And I was there when someone said that at the conference, and I've heard that now repeated back to me, presumably from other people that were there. So it's whether it's true or not, people believe it. So and I believe it.
You can't make it up about some zip code somewhere else. So
yeah, right. It's at least believable. So yeah, let's go with it.
All right. Okay. Well, anything in closing? Q4, what's going to be different?
Yeah, Q4 is always crazy for for merchants generally, especially e-commerce merchants. And for us, it's big for our sellers because there's this paradox of when they grow, that's when they run out of inventory, right? So if we're coming off the heels of Prime Day, so many sellers that don't have Payability daily payments sold out, and then they're sitting there. They're like, well, now what do I do? I just sold out of all my stuff. And the same can be said about Q4. So we advise people to start planning, Q4 of last year, basically for this year. Look at what happened last year. Look at what happened on Prime Day, and get your hands on liquidity. That's how you're going to be able to keep the shelves stocked, and that's how you're going to be able to keep the sales coming in. And if that's your goal, if your goal is to sell as much as possible, you need to be in the position to buy as much as possible to keep feeding that engine at least through mid-January when you can finally take a break. So,
well, I just want to say, you said before about that guy who said, he wants to make $50,000 and go fishing. I know a lot of people who are making a lot more and still fishing a lot.
Well, it's kind of, if you make way more, you can fish whenever you want. So
That's true. If you make in the middle, you're like,
yeah.
Okay, Kevin, that was really good. I appreciate it, and I'll put your contact information below. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks a lot, Ed. Take it easy.
All right, bye.